G'day guys, welcome to the Boxing Deep Dive channel. This is the review of the big fights. Just happened, it's only about an hour or so ago. Gervonta Tank Davis with the 7th round stoppage of King Ryan Garcia. What a card, although I must admit I'm not sure whether to be excited about the result or disappointed in the result or the fight, whatever it might be. We'll go through a round by round analysis of the fight. A little bit of quick recap of the undercard as well. But as I said, I'm not quite sure what to feel about it. Congratulations to Tank Davis, who got the job done. Wasn't the most exciting performance by him, but when you get two fighters of this stature, there's a lot of feeling out, and I think this was the case. Garcia, did he go all in a little bit too early and have the wind taken out of his sails early in the fight with the knockdown? I'm not quite sure, but look, the main thing is that the whole boxing world was anticipating this fight, and more importantly, the non-boxing world was also as well, a large portion of it. A lot of people talking about this fight who weren't necessarily boxing people. So, we need more events like this, and it's great that these guys finally got on. It took place, of course, at T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. Before we get into the main fight itself, being Davis and Garcia, let's have a quick recap of the undercard. Let's just say it wasn't the greatest of undercards. Start off with Elijah Garcia, prospect, only 20 years old, or 19 or 20 years old, whatever it might be. He's now 15-0 with 12 KOs. He's got a 10-round decision over Kevin Salgado, who falls to 15-2-1 with 10 KOs. Look, it was a workmanlike performance. As I said, they've got big raps on Garcia, but I wasn't really impressed by his performance. I know he's only a kid, even though he's had 15 fights, still finding his way. This is his first 10-rounder, so he got the job done. And what you got to remember when these kids step up to a 10-rounder, it's a big call going from 6 to 8 to 10. Sometimes it's more of a mental thing. Physically, they can do it, no problem. But mentally, they've got to get past. And I think they just wanted to get this 10 rounds under his belt and they'll move on. But 95-94 was the first card and 97-92 on the other two cards. So Elijah Garcia with the 10-round decision over Kevin Salgado. The other fights on the card, Gabriel Rosado had the big bully, Bektemir Malikusev. I was disappointed in this fight. I did expect a lot more out of it. We all remember, of course, Rosado a couple of years ago knocked out Malikusev in the 3rd round in a major KO of the year. It was in 2021. So I was expecting more. Rosado, look, I think he probably knew he wasn't going to probably do it that easy this time. The bully was sort of looking more for the shot this time and probably played a lot more safer. But yeah, it was a really, really disappointing fight. It was 99-91 on all 3 cards, so 9 rounds to 1. So I was pretty glad when the final bell of that fight went so we could get on to the main support and, of course, the main event. But the main support was almost as disappointing if you look at it as far as the fight goes, but exciting in another way. David Morrell Jr., 9-0 with 8 KOs with a sensational first-round knockout of Yamaguchi Falcao, who falls to 24-2-1 with 10 KOs. Just a really, really impressive performance from Morrell Jr. I know he's a late replacement and all the rest of it, but he was a bronze medalist from the 2012 Olympic Games, so he can fight Falcao. But yeah, he looked, right from the word go, he looked uncomfortable. Morrell just poured it on, and this kid is exciting, and he's only had 9 fights, but could this be a new player in the super middleweight division? I think so. He's, of course, a WBA regular champion. But we talk about Canelo and Benavidez. This guy, I think, give him another 4 or 5 fights, and he could be right in the mix. And if the Benavidez-Canelo fight doesn't happen, I would love to see Morrell Jr. and Benavidez fight in sort of 12 to 18 months. I reckon that would be a fantastic fight. But that was the main support. Of course, we get into the main event. I've got some notes to go through here. Just did a little bit of recap after each round so I could come on here and talk about it. The first round, very much a feeling out round. Ryan Garcia, probably not surprisingly, took the center ring. I think he really wanted to probably get the respect of Davis. And Davis has been known to start slowly. I think it was really good. Garcia's got that really wicked, snapping, whipping type of left hook that's really dangerous early. So I was really not surprised to see Davis take it really easy in the first round. And Garcia, again, taking that center ring. Neither really willing to take any risk, but you see that in fights of this magnitude. You've got to remember, both of these guys have great knockout records. Both of them have got power in either hand. Both very dangerous early in fights. So I wasn't surprised to see Both fighters cautious, but I did give the first round to Ryan Garcia just by his more ring presence. He took centre ring. He backed Davis up, threw some snapping jabs out there, but no one really landed any meaningful punches. But I've just given Garcia the round just. So that was a 10-9 round for Ryan Garcia. In the round two, just what a round this was. And this was a really hard round to score. Not that the scoring mattered in the end, I know, but scoring it at the time, Garcia really come out like hard. Probably the first 10 seconds was just the same, we'll just feel each other out. And then he landed a couple, and then it was on. And he really went after Davis, and, it was probably a classic example of don't get too ahead of yourself in fights of this magnitude. He did land some shots, probably more grazing shots. I don't think there was any shots in there that really rattled Davis, but he was sort of a bit flustered because Garcia turned it on. He turned it on quick. It wasn't like it was an accumulation through the round. It went from 0 to 10 really quick. So Garcia turned it on. Davis, look, I think he did the right thing. He didn't try and exchange with Garcia. He didn't try and get into a shootout early on in the fight. He kept his composure, kept moving, clinched when he needed to, move when he needed to. And I thought he did really well. And then, of course, about halfway through the round, or was it 3/4 through the round, bang, that beautiful counter left, we'll call it a left hook / uppercut, caught Garcia cold. And what a beautiful shot. I leapt out of my seat at that moment, not so much because of the knockdown itself, but just the timing of the shot and the power on the shot, the range that he had, the way he executed it was the perfect shot. And Garcia, in my opinion, did very, very well to get up from that shot. So technically, it should be a 10-8 round for Davis. I did give him a 10-8 round, but if you look at the whole round as an entirety, Garcia pretty much dominated the round up until he got decked. So it's one of those rounds that you've got to look at and go, geez, is it a 10-10? Is it a 10-9 for Davis instead of a 10-8? Look, I went the route of the way. Look, I've always sort of looked to score it, and that's a 10-8 round to Davis. He dropped Garcia with a beautiful shot. So I've given it to Davis, although I think only 2 of the 3 judges gave it to Davis a 10-8. The others might have given it a 10-9. I think one might even give it a 10-10, but I haven't had a chance to look at the scorecard yet. But for me, I gave it 10-8 to Davis. Round 3, as you can imagine, Tank Davis looking very relaxed, very confident. He started to come forward a little bit. Garcia backed him up for the first 2 rounds. And again, not surprisingly, Garcia showing a lot more caution. And one thing, I'll just backtrack a little bit. One thing I was impressed about was in the corner of Ryan Garcia. Joe Goosen in the corner, just very, very experienced, of course. Settled down Ryan Garcia. Didn't get too excited. He just said, Ryan, you got ahead of yourself, relax, just take it back a notch. You're doing well, you're doing the right thing. And I thought that was really good. And I thought you could probably see that translate into the 3rd round where Garcia, like, he could have easily gone back into his shell. He could have let Davis come at him, but he took centre ring again. They both had their moments taking centre ring, but I just like the way that Garcia kept his composure. I don't think he won the round. I think Davis, as I said earlier, looked a lot more confident, was even starting to talk to Garcia, so that's probably another sign that he's looking very comfortable in there. But I gave the 3rd round to Tank Davis, so I had him up 2 rounds to 1. Round 4 was another cautious round, but you could almost smell the scent of a knockout in the air if one of them landed the shot. And in these type of fights, especially with guys that can punch like this, the first 4 or 5 rounds, both fighters tend to be cautious. Well, it can probably go either way. You can go out there and both can go for the knockout. But in his case, it wasn't surprising that both were still a little bit tentative. Even Davis, who had success with the knockdown, I think he's been around enough to know that, yes, it was a good shot, but Garcia is still dangerous. So both of them were still a little bit cautious. And as I said, you could sort of sense that, and both fighters obviously sensed that there was still that danger of a shock knockout here or a knockdown. So let's just play it safe. And both, more importantly, throwing single punches at a time. That's probably a real sign that neither one of them are really prepared to take any risk. So one shot at a time, looking for the other guy to make a mistake and hopefully counter. But again, I gave the 4th round to Davis slightly in another close round. And then we get into round 5. This was probably the slowest round of the fight. I thought Garcia was coming forward again. Davis looking to counter. And Garcia looking for that check hook and Davis looking for the counter left hand being the southpaw. So not a lot of meaningful punches, but I did give the round to Tank Davis again. So pretty much 4 rounds to 1 with the knockdown. So on my card, he was pretty much well in front. Round 6, Garcia did come out fast. Again, he landed a couple of good right hands to start the round. Again, Davis didn't panic, clinched, moved, really just did what he did. And Garcia again, I thought quite surprisingly was picking up the pace again and throwing punches with a little bit of abandon. And I wasn't really confident that he would last out the fight at this stage because he hadn't learned the lessons of the second round when he got dropped and he was starting to get a bit loose again. And if you've seen Garcia fight a lot over the journey, he has this habit of putting the chin up in the air when he throws those hooks or uppercuts. And you could see that Davis was looking for that counter left hand over the top. So, but one thing I did notice from Garcia that I was very impressed with, and it's obviously come from the corner, he stopped actually looking for the check hook and started to go for the power right hand. And he did actually have some success, as I said, early in the round with that as well. So that was a good little, this is what sometimes separates the good trainers from the average trainer, where they look to change things up during the fight. And the check hook wasn't really working. He'd obviously been nailed a couple of times and dropped, but I was impressed with the way he started to look for that right hand instead of the hook. So didn't obviously work out well from the end, I know, but I was impressed. I remember watching during the fight thinking, yeah, that's good advice from the corner. Another close round, but I did give the 6th round to Garcia, so 4 rounds to 2. And then, of course, round 7, it was all over. I thought the round actually started off quite well for Garcia, who had some success. Started backing Davis up again. Davis, again, was just looking so cool, calm, and collected, wasn't he? Garcia, you could probably tell, hadn't been in those big fights before and was starting to get a little bit rattled. He probably knew that he was behind, even as well as his corner were, I thought, performing on the night. You could just tell by his body language. You could tell that he wasn't probably getting the success that he wanted to. He got a little bit loose. But then surprisingly, and I don't know about you guys watching the fight at the time, but I didn't see the body shot. Now, it was a left hook to the liver just as they've come out of an exchange. And I must admit, I missed it. All I did see is Garcia. It was probably a 3 or 4 second delay. He went down. I thought, yep, okay, the signs were there straight away. Of course, it had to be a body shot. He snuck it underneath. Now, I wasn't surprised that he went down, but I'll tell you what, I was very, very, very surprised that he stayed down. Now, one thing people say, oh, geez, why was it a delayed reaction? Now, have you ever been a boxer or even been winded in any situation, you know that there can be a delayed reaction. So I'm not surprised by that at all. And looking at the replay, it was a beautiful shot in the liver. And you could see that he didn't feel it at first, backed off, and then the realization of the pain hit him. And it can take 1 or 2 seconds, I assure you, to hit. And I think he made a very, very good decision to take one knee. And I thought, yeah, very, very smart. It was only halfway through the round, of course. It might have even been like a minute in or minute 20 in. So he's taken the knee. But as I said, I was very, very, very surprised that he didn't get up, even though he probably still would have been finding it hard to breathe in the wind, that he didn't try and at least do something. Get up, clinch, hold, move, do something. Now, I've been in that position myself a few times. When I've been boxing, I spent 15 years boxing, and I have been in that situation. But I must admit, after 10 seconds or 8 seconds, whatever it was that he had to recover, you've got just enough in the tank just to take a few little breaths and try and do something. So I was surprised in a fight of this magnitude, of what was at stake. I know there was no world title fights, but there's a hell of a lot riding on this fight. So I don't know what the guy was feeling. Of course, I didn't take the shot, and I'm glad I didn't because it was a good shot. But I was very surprised when he did get up. He actually looked okay. He shook his head at his corner. I'm just not sure what was going through his head. And why, you backtrack a few years to when Oscar De La Hoya got dropped by the shot against Bernard Hopkins and went down. Now, he had no hope of getting up. You could see that when he went down because he's banging the canvas. He knew he had no hope of getting up. He was basically paralyzed. I didn't see that in Ryan Garcia. I saw him on one knee. It's not like he's down on his haunches. This is probably what gave it away. If you're on your haunches like De La Hoya was against Hopkins, you know you're in a bit of trouble. But the fact he was still upright, He was on one knee, looked like he was going to take the 8 count, take a deep breath, and he was going to get up. And when he didn't get up, I just don't know. Maybe there was more to it, but I can't see why he couldn't at least try and get up and clinch, hold, move, do something. But again, as I said, I'm not the one in there taking the punches. I don't know what was going on in his head and his body at the time, so I'm not going to preempt him. But that's what I did find intriguing in the fight. So, but massive congratulations to Tank Davis. I won't say he is the face of boxing, as they're all saying after the fight, because I just don't think he's a big name, of course. I don't think he's the biggest name. I think there's a lot of people in front of him, so I disregard that. I think if Garcia had have won, then he could easily have been the face of boxing. But Tank Davis, look, he's had some issues outside the ring. He has had a lot of knockouts, but isn't the most exciting fighter, I don't think. I think there's others that are out there more exciting from him. He can get you out of there, of course, as it's shown, if he gets you hurt. But outside that, I don't think he's conducive to being, that crossover type of star like a Mayweather is or Canelo is and Pacquiao was and all the rest of it. And I certainly don't think his persona when he's getting interviewed and obviously a few problems he's had outside the ring really are conducive for him to being the face of boxing. So I'll hold judgment on that. But I'll tell you what I would like to see is him now starting to put out there that he wants to fight Devin Haney and Lomachenko, maybe the winner of that one. He wants to fight Shakur Stevenson. There's so many big fights out there, and it's really surprising that Davis's name doesn't necessarily get thrown up amongst those guys. We always hear about Stevenson and Haney and Lomachenko and all these guys sort of fighting each other, but you don't see his name sort of put out there. I want to see his name out there. I want him to say, I want the Haney-Lomachenko fight next. That's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear that he's going to fight anyone else except the winner of that fight. And no matter who it is, what a fight that would be. So there it is. Interesting to hear your comments or opinions on things. Look, again, I think it was just great for the sport of boxing. I must admit, I didn't really have anyone I was, going for in the fight. I just wanted a great fight. I'm a fan of both fighters in different ways. But I looked at it through neutral eyes. But as I said, I'm really happy the fact that we had a packed house. The pay-per-view should be massive. And it just goes to show you that when there's a massive boxing fight or boxing event on, no one can compete with boxing, not even all the other combat sports, the UFC and even the WWE, even though it's more entertainment. But when there's a big boxing event on, it's UFC who. Let's just face it. That's a fact. But not to say I'm not a fan of UFC, by the way. Yeah, look, more importantly, boxing, it's back on the map. We've got Haney Lomachenko next month, and who knows what other fights are going to transpire throughout the course of the year. So love the event, love getting up at 10 o'clock on a Sunday morning, I will say, and having the fight starting. And even though the card itself wasn't, the undercard I will say, wasn't exactly a barn burner, I think it was just great to have a main event of this stature. And again, as I said, great for boxing. So what did you think? Let's hope we see more of it. Let's see, as I said, let's hope we see Davis against Haney or Lomachenko next. But no matter what happens, I'm sure we'll see Ryan Garcia back. But what did you think? Put your comments down below, and happy to hear your say. And until then, we'll see you next time.